We are not going to sit back and take it. Our leaders on the left are going to stand up for what's right.
We are going to fight this fight. I am going to stand with you in this fight, and we will win. 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 We won't rest. We won't rest.
Oh, we are so we are doomed. All these old men. Look at who we have running this country.
Why we are introducing the Taxpayer Data Protection Act to shield the American people from this out-of-control power grab permanently, and to make sure that the financial, personal, medical, and confidential information of the American people is protected.
I rise to announce that the movement to impeach the president has begun. I rise to announce that I will bring articles of impeachment against the president for dastardly deeds proposed and dastardly deeds done. I also rise to say that the impeachment movement is going to be a grass-up movement, not a top-down. The people have got to move forward. The people have to demand it. And when the people demand it, it will be done. I did it before. I laid the foundation for impeachment.
People the other day crying, oh, I don't know, Trump has removed money. He said he's not giving us any more money. Watu wanalia. Why are you crying? It's not your government, it's not your country. He has no reason to give you anything. I mean, you don't pay taxes in America. He is appealing to his people. Shauri yenu bwana. This is a wake-up call for you to say, okay, what are we going to do to help ourselves?
Welcome back to the Unregulated podcast. This is episode number 216 here on Friday, February 7th. I'm your co-host, Tom Pyle.
And I'm Mike McKenna, and I had some cappuccino for lunch, so I'm a little bit wired.
All right. Well, not as wired as the leader of the Democratic Party, New York Senator Chuck Schumer, who we will win. We will. Wait, what? What, Maxine? What? Oh, we won't rest.
Si se pueda. Si se pueda.
The best part about this clip, the best part about the clip of them storming the Department of Education today is just the sheer imagery of these guys. The average age of everyone in the front row of the Democratic outrage has got to be 80.
I'm glad somebody showed up at the Department of Education this morning.
We won't rest. I seriously bet you rest on a frequent and regular basis.
We won't rest until today's scheduled nap. Then we'll rest.
Oh, man. And then, of course, not the Speaker Emerita.
No such thing.
But the minority, what do they call him? The Democratic leader? What's the
minority leader? The minority leader.
Minority leader Hakeem Jeffries is going to put a stop to D.O.G.E by introducing a bill to protect our privacy. That's their big response.
It should make people wonder. I mean, don't get me wrong. You know how I feel about privacy and databases and whatnot. But it should make you wonder that all these agencies have these extensive databases with a bunch of information on you. I mean, is this where we really started off in 1789? Is this how we started off? I don't think so.
I have a rather strong feeling that this is not going to fly. This whole strategy.
Oh,
And even if it does, what does Elon Musk care if people don't like him?
yeah, Elon Musk is in this for the is. I do.
He's literally like the bad cop in this scenario.
I don't understand why. I don't understand exactly why he's there, but I guarantee you, it's not for public approval. It's for cash of some variety, right? So
sure,
like
in the interim. So
yeah.
It didn't take 15. Is it 15 days? What's today?
January 7th.
February 7th. So what is it? 16 days?
18 days. Are we
days.
counting since inauguration?
Yeah, 18 days. And Congressman Al Green is starting the impeachment process for dastardly deeds.
I have to be honest with you. I love his music. I really think he's great.
Al Green, of course, holding up the cane that he's using because, he's outraged.
Well,
by the way, do you remember Dick Dastardly?
No. Should I?
And his sidekick Muttley?
Is this some kind of weird cartoon?
It was
from
one
your
of those
childhood?
Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Remember all those trippy cartoons? I just thought of that when he was dastardly deeds done.
Oh, I'm sorry, we weren't allowed to take drugs in our house when I was a kid. Sorry.
Anyway, and then the last clip was probably some good advice from the former Kenyan leader to the rest of his brethren. It was great. Just like, why are you crying?
Yeah, you're
take care of yourself.
You're owed nothing. You're owed nothing. That's a powerful message. I kind of wonder how many people pay attention to it.
Yeah, exactly. Any announcements for you this week?
I have two super simple ones because I suspect you're not going to use this one for this day in history. I want to remind everybody that yesterday was Ronald Reagan's birthday. Yeah, he was born in 1913. So that's one, and then two. I want to apologize in advance for whatever I'm going to say today.
You got to rash your last week. The feedback was, I got one from a friend of mine in Tennessee,
and for what? and look, I want to say I'm sorry in particular.
She said, I quote, "My God, your co-anchor is a cynical little beep."
Yeah. So I'm really sorry, Brian and Margaret, if I went overboard on the Chiefs, but let's be honest, the Swiftie thing is in fact unconscionable. And I think you think that too. And I know that puts you in a bad spot. The other thing, I got it.
Wait, hold that for me. Because that is exactly what my working theory is about President Trump and the libs and the Dem outrage. I think there's a whole lot of people out in the real world who are in that camp, but are secretly happy about what's going on.
I'm sorry, happy which is going on?
All of this reset business, everything with all the crazy, girls in sports and all the I think there's a very strong current of people who would never, who will always outwardly face their Trump derangement syndrome, but are probably quietly a little bit relieved that there's been a bit of a reset here.
Of course there are.
In some of the left's insanity. That's my theory. That's my working theory.
All right. I'm not sure what that has to do with the Chiefs and Taylor Swift, but I appreciate the gesture.
But you said that Chiefs fans also agreed with us.
Oh, yeah. Yes, correct. And then lastly, and I got this at lunch yesterday from a good friend of mine who said that he said I had been particularly surly the last couple of episodes. Two things about that. One, I apologize. I apologize for nothing. I apologize.
Of course you
nothing.
don't. Of course.
I feel bad if I've hurt somebody's feelings, but that's your problem, not mine. And second off, there are probably 40 million podcasts in this country.
All right, listen. Let's not actively encourage our listeners to shop around, okay?
I'm just saying. Look, our brand. I talked a lot about brand at lunch today, and my brand is not like sunshiny happiness. My brand is realistic optimism, and if you're not buying it, that's cool. I'm cool with it, but don't ask me to change. I'm a grown man.
I have no announcements.
How are you going to do? What are you going to do after that? Come on.
I have no announcements. But I will say that this happened in 1613 on this day and lasted for 304 years. This happened on this day in 1613.
And went to 1917?
Yes, sir.
Wow. The Holy Roman Empire. The Russian.
No.
The Romanovs. The Romanovs in Russia.
Yes. Well done. I knew you'd get it.
Golly, man.
1917 would have triggered it.
So 1613.
On this day, Michael Romanov became Tsar of Russia. And they remained in power until the Russian Revolution, when Tsar Nicholas II abdicated the throne and was subsequently
I was going to say the communists shot them all to death.
Yes, sir.
Just in case you forget who the Russian communists really are.
This is kind of an obscure little thing, but I threw it in there anyway. This happened in 1775.
On February 7th?
Yeah, 1775. You're not going to guess it, but it has to do with one of the founding fathers.
I was going to guess something around that. Go ahead. I can't guess.
So on this day in 1775, a gentleman named Benjamin Franklin published what was called an imaginary speech in London, defending American courage against British criticism. The speech humorously addressed critiques of American devotion to women, courage, and religion, highlighting the growth of the colonial population and the role of the Puritans in British history. While Franklin's wit was on display, the speech was acknowledged at the colonial militia's early ineffectiveness during the 7 Years' War, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess there was some famous imaginary speech that I wasn't aware of.
I wasn't aware of it either. But anytime you make the British look bad, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, is that is that chippy? Is that too chippy? Am I being too chippy?
It wouldn't be you if you weren't chippy. In 1974, this gentleman made fun of just about everybody in the debut of a film that premiered at the Pickwick Drive-In in Burbank, California, where the patrons watched from horseback.
Oh, the thing with the Blazing Saddles.
Yes, sir, Blazing Saddles. Today was the premiere in 1974, a movie that will never be made today. Or maybe it might.
No way. Hey, I didn't get a harumph out of that guy. You know what? That is seriously the most Washington scene in any movie anywhere, where they're all harumphing. Yeah. And the governor's like, hey, I didn't get a harumph out of that guy. You watch yourself, mister.
I also like the toll in the middle of the...
Sure.
Somebody go back and get a deep load of dimes. And not quite as funny, and probably something that many people in this pact regret. This happened in 1992, across the pond.
Oh, this is the EU thing?
Yes, sir. Today, in 1992, the EU treaty was signed.
The treaty of, what is it? Utrecht?
The
the Maastricht. Yeah.
Treaty of European Union, signed by ministers of the community, call for greater economic integration, common foreign and security policies, and cooperation between police and other authorities on crime, terrorism, immigration, et cetera, et cetera. And now I'm sure a bunch of countries in that pact regret that they have created a yet another layer of government on top of the layers upon layers of government in Europe.
In 1917, in the wake of a defeat to the Italians up in the mountains, the Alps, right? This is the Italian Alps. The Austrian army fled northward, right? And Paul Ludendorff, the great German field marshal, was asked, how's it going, General, basically? What do you think about this? And he responded by saying simply, we are fettered to a corpse.
That's very accurate.
I kind of wonder if there are European nations who don't wake up some days and go, we are fettered to a corpse.
Yeah, 100%. So I got a feeling that there's potentially going to be some, maybe some more Brexit type situations here in the near future. So, all right. So we recorded this last week's episode like Tuesday, midweek-ish.
Yep.
And it is now Friday. Since we recorded last, President Trump started and then temporarily ended a trade war. He expressed interest in occupying the Gaza Strip.
Wait, whoa. Come on. He did more than that.
His colleague has raided the Treasury and stolen all of our deepest private sensitive information. Let's see, what am I missing? So it has been a week.
It's just a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on.
The greatest second act.
It may be.
As we mentioned earlier, we already have the process of articles of impeachment being filed by the Democrats. So it's been quite a week. Let's talk USAID first, shall we?
Sure.
Brilliant move by the D.O.G.E bros to highlight USAID as an agency that it must be practically or almost completely eliminated.
Well, foreign aid always scores pretty high on the list of things that Americans don't like. So it's a safe place to start.
Yeah, well, not only that, but
I mean, we couldn't. Although I'd be honest, to be honest, obviously nobody's talking to anybody because everyone's like, "Hey, USAID's dead," and like Secretary Rubio, within an hour of that, came out and said, "This is not about getting rid of USAID," and I was like, "Well, okay."
Wait, did you not get the memo?
Well, for all you know, he did get the memo, and the other guys didn't get the memo. It's just like, but maybe you guys could have a meeting or something, or if you could all get on the same text thread together, you could figure it out.
Let me lay this out. You probably have heard this already, sort of kind of floating around, but like Trump has taken off these issues that are just really the phrase now is 80-20 issues, right? And he's just basically teeing it up for the other guys to criticize him for all of this stuff. And the public is on board with almost all of these sort of, these EO shows that are going on in the afternoons and everything else. And both Axelrod, this is from Fox News, basically laying out that a lot of Democrats are not too excited about making this the hill that the Democrats die on. Both David Axelrod and Rahm Emanuel both said that this is a pretty big miscalculation for them to fall on their sword for USAID, because all these grants that they've been given to all these NGOs for all this crazy stuff can just get trickled out there.
Sure. I mean,
and by the way, what do Emanuel and Axelrod have in common?
They're from Chicago.
Yeah, they're from the Obama machine, right? These guys probably know a whole hell of a lot of stuff that was funded through USAID that they don't want to be responsible for or be associated with. But I'm sure they know that there's a lot out there that can be thrown back in their faces.
Yeah, Team Trump is really is executing, a press, right? A full court press. And that is an attempt to speed up the game, and the other side makes mistakes.
They will too, but they anticipate that, right?
Well, but if on the other side, you get that full court press, the right answer is slow yourself down, right? Calm your heart rate. Don't get too excited, because one thing's going to happen for sure.
Yeah, one of these old guys is going to keel over.
Well, I wasn't thinking about that. One thing's for sure is in the next day, week, month, whatever, Team Musk is going to bounce into something that's a real problem, and it's going to make everybody look bad, and then you can pounce. But the idea of going now, to your point, I'd just sit back and go, yeah, sure, enjoy, because the nearest voter is still 21 months away, so there's plenty of time for people to make mistakes. Let them make mistakes.
Yeah.
We got 60,000 people who theoretically got 60,000 people who are going to take the buyout. I got no independent verification of that number. Suppose all 300 guys at PHMSA, the Pipeline Hazardous Safety Materials Administration, decide to take the buyout tomorrow morning. That's going to complicate everybody getting pipelines permitted. Or suppose all 1,400 guys at FERC took it all at once. The thing with these Musk guys is They think it's like the private sector that everybody's fungible. Everybody is not, in fact, fungible. I mean, a lot of people are fungible, but not
everyone is replaceable.
Sure, everybody. The graveyards are full of irreplaceable men.
Yeah.
But eventually they're going to bounce into something that causes real problems, and then the Democrats will pounce, or whatever the Democrats do.
Democrats.
They seize.
Neither seize nor pounce. It's only Republicans.
What do they do? We got to have a verb for them. We're going to need
Democrats are doing a service.
Yeah, we need a better verb than that. Seize, pounce, preserve.
We will not rest
until our nap time today.
We will win. We will win.
Oh boy, that's
all right. Speaking of Mr. Schumer, here's another moment of outrage by the who I guess is auditioning to be the leader of the Democratic Party.
Let's just take Super Bowl Sunday, okay? It's going to affect beer, okay? Most of it, Corona here, comes from Mexico. It's going to affect your guac, because what is guacamole made of? Avocados, both from Mexico.
Did you see that clip?
No.
It's almost as bad as his hamburger deal.
Just so.
You remember the cheese on the raw burger?
It's just
for the 4th of July.
It's just painfully awkward, right? He just can't. I mean, he's
yeah.
He's like a human being as imagined by artificial intelligence. He's just not quite right.
Yeah, exactly. So. Did the trade? The deadline was the day we recorded last, right?
The deadline for
the tariffs to kick in,
February 1st.
Which we recorded before that, I think.
Yeah, like a day or two before that. Yeah.
Like I said earlier, we hadn't ended a trade war since our last recording.
I think we should take the victory lap and just own it on that one. Everybody in America,
I will
welcome.
Because you guys know the result was that they were doing 25% across the board, but then President Trump knocked crude oil down to 10%, knocked energy down to 10%, and I'll take the W for that. The reason is that it was a recognition that 25% tariff on crude would be pretty impactful. But one and two, it is the only thing that he carved out of that deal, and I'm hopeful that the next round will be 10 or less or 0, and that we can dispense with this notion that we should be putting tariffs on energy. I mean, like oil and gas and stuff like that, right? That to me I think it'd be worse. I think the outcome would be worse. There'd be the bad would outweigh the good on that. We don't import oil from China, for example. If we do, there's barely any. And I'm not talking sanctions either. Like, that's a whole different ballgame. But at the end of the day, we cannot tariff energy.
You can.
You can, but we shouldn't.
You can, but you shouldn't. Yeah, I think we probably should take some kind of victory lap. It was okay. I still think that I can't figure out. Here's what I can't figure out. Did this experience was this all kabuki, or was it partly was the quick pullback partly response to how the market received it? Right. I think about these tariffs through one lens and one lens only, and that is if the tariffs have no political price to them, then we're going to have a carbon-based border adjustment here shortly, right? So to my mind, we always need to think about tariffs as taxes, because they are, and tariffs on energy are taxes on energy paid for by the consumers of energy. Yeah, and I realize this is going to be something that some folks in the Trump orbit are going to have trouble with, but it's the truth. So
yeah, well, the other thing too is, especially with Canadian crude, because the 99.9 or practically 100% of the product that people put in their gas tanks in the Midwest in PADD 2 is refined Canadian crude.
Yeah, right? And I think, by the way,
and we buy it at a discount because they have to continuously produce this stuff up in the oil sands. Like,
that's right.
folks need to realize they can't turn on and off the wells like you can in the Permian.
Yeah.
They have to continue to produce it. And if it doesn't go to market, it's basically gone. And so we actually enjoy a bit of a discount for that crude. And it allows us to export some of our stuff, which contributes to the whole soft power thing, right? With the, using energy dominance and whatnot, what have you. So it really is, because we didn't build a new refinery, haven't built one since 1976. And because those folks didn't anticipate having all this light, sweet stuff coming out of the ground, they tooled their refineries to produce this heavy stuff from Canada, Venezuela. And, it's going to be very costly. And some of these marginal refineries will go out of business if the strategy is to, use our own oil because we're not building any new ones anytime soon. All the new ones should be built close to the Permian, right? That would make sense.
We are going to, this is a fight we're going to have to fight again and again and again.
I would consider it more of just an education process.
Is that right? Is that what you consider it?
That would be my initial.
Is that what you consider it?
Is that these guys are open to listening to these arguments?
Because where I'm from, when a guy punches you in the nose, it's a fight. It's not an educational effort to try to make him feel bad about punching you in the nose.
I bring this up. I was stewing about this yesterday. I was watching all of this stuff about all these agencies and the heads of these agencies asking for lists and names of people in the agencies. And I got a little bit, miffed about our exercise in 2016. Do you remember the questions that we submitted to the Department of Education?
Yep.
I'm sorry, the Department of Energy?
Yep.
And you remember the blowback that I received for that?
Yep.
Front page Washington Post, front page New York Times.
Yep.
How dare I ask basic questions about who's doing what in the department? So I feel a little bit vindicated because I did my job and did it the way it was supposed to be done. And the theory was that we were supposed to be fulfilling the president's promises, but that didn't happen that first time around. And I certainly, if, I'm going to put those questions in the show notes. I'd love people to read them. We've got a web link to them because there's nothing crazy about those questions. I was going to say there was nothing crazy about those questions.
The most unremarkable bunch of questions ever.
And if you compare it to the ones that are being asked in this round, they're even more benign.
Wow.
And actually get to some of the functioning of the agencies, and also get, the EOs that President Trump signed literally eliminate social cost of carbon, et cetera. So anyway, I've got it off my chest now, but I'm going to shoot those questions to folks. And by the way, anyone at the department who's kind of combing through, because a lot of those questions are relevant today, happy to share the answers with you. I've got a whole binder in my office. Just reach out to me and I'll make sure I get a copy of that sent over to you guys. So, okay, I got it off my chest.
I was going to say, feel better now?
Yes.
Feel better? All right.
Nomination watch. Let's roll through that because I know we've got to give our audience a bit of time here for this great interview that you had with Tyler O'Neill, who I'd never heard of before. Yeah. But he's definitely one of us. He's
probably crazier than we are.
He was hawking his book, The Woketopus.
Terrible title.
Was that the name of it?
Terrible title.
I got to be honest, I wouldn't read that.
No, and the funny thing is, it has nothing to do with the actual book, I don't think. What did we decide a better title would be? We told him right to his face. We're like, hey man, there's a better title for this thing. You know
what? Let's just drop it now, right? Let's drop the interview right now.
Sure.
So this is Mike and Tyler O'Neill, and then we'll be back.
I'm here with Tyler O'Neill. And with a name like that, I'm going to let him talk mostly about himself instead of me talking about him. Tyler, where are you from?
I'm from Colorado. I like to say I was born in the People's Republic of Boulder. Now I live in the outskirts of Mordor.
Yeah, right. And where'd you go to school?
Hillsdale College.
Shocker.
Southern Michigan.
Shocked. I'm pretty confident our listeners know where Hillsdale might be. All right. And what do you do for a living now?
I am managing editor at the Daily Signal. So I write, edit, and decided I'd try my hand at another book. So
I understand. Second best publication in Washington. right behind the Washington Times.
Thank you.
A reminder that they're co-sponsors of our this podcast. You have written a book. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's called The Woketopus, The Dark Money Cabal Manipulating the Federal Government.
That's a terrible title, just you.
Terrible, very terrible.
Come on.
Very memorable, I hope. Although sometimes when I'm being interviewed about it, people are like, Woketopus? Woketopus? And I'm just like, come on, guys. Woke octopus. Woketopus.
Any title, as the guys at the Times taught me, any title with a colon in it, you're in trouble right away. Anyway, tell us about the book.
Yeah, so the book peels back the layers of the left's dark money and influence campaign that really revved into high gear in the Biden administration, but is still with us today. There's some of the forces behind deep state and then NGO actors opposing Trump, some from within, some from outside the government. So right now, I think this book is very important as a roadmap for D.O.G.E to look at more places to cut and ways to weaken the influence of this woke campaign in the administrative state. But it also provides a good roadmap for how to respond to some of the excesses of the Biden administration. Some of it has already been rightly adjudicated. I have a big section on the weaponization of federal law enforcement, and a medium part of that chapter is focused on the prosecution of pro-life protesters, which thankfully Trump just pardoned. So he has already set a lot of things right. But there are other large sections in the book, particularly on the left's influence campaign when it comes to the green issues, particularly what I call the green revolving door, where you had all of these climate alarmist activists who are being brought from these activist groups into the administration to crack down on oil and gas and collude with activist groups from outside the administration with strategies like sue and settle, where the American people are left out in the cold as an activist group works with the federal government, with these bureaucracies that want to crack down on oil and gas more anyway. So they work together to collude, leaving the American people's interests out in the cold.
All right. If that was a audition to join the podcast as a rotating co-host, you just nailed it. So we should probably close it up now and declare victory.
All right, that's good.
Talk for a second about the donors and how the money flows through to organizations, if you can.
Yeah. So some of these donors are people your audience will almost certainly have heard of before. You have George Soros and his Open Society foundations. Of course, Open Society is now run by George's son, Alex, who says that he's more political even than his father. But you also have the vast network of nonprofits created by Arabella Advisors. Eric Kessler, who is the founder of Arabella Advisors, had himself close ties in the Biden administration. But Arabella Advisors, this is the darkest of dark money. They are a for-profit company that set up a bunch of nonprofits, and those nonprofits have fiscal partnerships, so that when you actually have an activist group that looks like it's organizing protesters on the ground, what really is happening is money from a donor is going to one of these Arabella nonprofits and then being sent to that fiscal sponsorship. And the donor has no ties to the specific fiscal sponsorship that is actually doing the work on the ground. So this dark money apparatus is really good at hiding what donors are funding and how the impact that they're actually having.
Give us an idea of the scope of this cash.
It's massive. I mean, you're talking millions to all sorts of different organizations, billions in the aggregate. And I believe I was looking at this, Open Society will give these grants of multiple millions of dollars over the course of years, but they also give, more specific targeted grants as well. And the Arabella nonprofits, you can find all of it just by going to the 990s of these nonprofit organizations. But you see $1 million there, $1 million here, 500,000 for this organization, 500,000 for that. Sometimes it makes your eyes glaze over, but you have to realize the amount of money that's being funneled through this campaign is astronomical. And that's one of the reasons why this influence campaign I call the Woketopus has such a big impact in the federal government, but also outside of it, pushing the woke agenda. And some of these organizations, like the Human Rights Campaign, has had tremendous impact in corporate America as well as in the federal government.
Why? Why do they give the money? What are they trying to achieve? What do they want?
Well, a few things. I think some of them might want to make the world burn, but I think the main thing is a lot of these people do believe in these radical ideas that actually are untethered to reality. When you have an influence campaign like on climate alarmism, for instance, for decades you get these alarmists saying the world is going to end because of burning fossil fuels. And then they suggest that any sort of human impact on the environment is evil. And if you start from that mindset, you get to the point where you think, oh, we have to prevent human impacts on the environment in every potential way. And they start with oil and gas, but they're probably not going to end there. And some of them believe that human impact is itself bad. Meanwhile, I mean, if you have any understanding of history and understanding what's happening with the wildfires in California right now, you understand that human impacts can be very good for the environment. If you look at the way that logging actually works, when a logging company goes through and logs, they don't do so in a way that destroys the forest, because that would also undermine their ultimate bottom line. They have strategies that they have to cull the forest with the trees that need to go down, but also have, also plant new trees. And so human involvement often actually helps the environment in the long run, because many of the times, I grew up in bone dry Colorado. I mean, it was bone dry when I was growing up. My dad's a volunteer fireman. So he would be the first to tell you that in order to prevent part of the forest from burning down, you have to do basic forest management. You have to clear the land. You have to make sure that all the debris that's going to go up in smoke in an instant, whenever there's a fire that comes close, has to be taken care of. And so this sort of management, controlled burns, these are very effective and helpful for forests, because forests need to be culled. They need to have an occasional burn so that the entire ecosystem can restart itself. But the idea that you should just step back and allow nature to be itself, that doesn't really work. That doesn't align with human flourishing. And it also doesn't work as well for nature in many cases. Human management has been very positive for the environment. But when these activist groups have an idea, like climate alarmism, they say the world is going to end. That prediction fails over and over and over again. I mean, we've had these predictions for decades, and they always say, oh, we only have 7 years unless we act now. Oh, we only have X number of years unless we act now. And then we don't act, and then the world keeps on spinning. So I think it's important to note, it's because this narrative has entrenched itself, and it's entrenched itself because big money interests favor it. You have people like John Podesta, who was the centerpiece of where Biden was sending all his money in the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. He's extremely well connected to the billionaire donor class, to people like Hans-Jörg Wyss, who's a Swiss who lives in America, who sends his money specifically to change the American system of government. And he's said so himself. His sister wrote a book about it. But all of these activists want to change the way things work in our country. And oftentimes they may be well-intentioned, they may not, but their rhetoric often makes them seem well-intentioned, but the results of their policies are almost always negative, and they divide the American people, and they force an ideology that the American people don't agree with. And so what we saw in this last election was President Trump winning resoundingly because Americans rejected these ideologies, whether it be climate alarmism, whether it be gender ideology, whether it be critical race theory, or the preference for technocratic government. Those four,
Right.
which I define as woke.
All right, Tyler, that's a long answer. And you got it. Unfortunately, you got it wrong. So you got it some right, but mostly wrong.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. The correct answer for why they give the money is because they like social entropy. And the reason why they like social entropy is because they hate people. It's okay it's okay just to say
part of that was,
It's okay just to say that.
I don't know if all of them hate people, but
They all hate people. That's just as simple as I can be.
that's outside the scope of my book, unfortunately.
There you have it. There's your next book. The donors who hate people. The big ticket donors to the Democratic Party who hate people. They don't just hate Americans, they hate everybody. That's why they are who they are. Okay. This is obviously a blue sky exercise, so I'm just going to give it to you and let you blue sky it. How do you think the Trump administration should address these challenges within the federal bureaucracy? And then in which, are there places, agencies, or issue areas that you think are sort of most, triage the most pressing?
Yeah. So they can do a great deal. The Trump administration is already off to a really excellent start with the executive orders opposing DEI in the federal government, the executive orders going against gender ideology, the executive orders trying to free up oil and gas. But you can't do everything through executive order. One of the main things that we need to see in this reconciliation bill, I think, is a structural reform to the way that the government works. I think what we really need to see is public sector unions rooted out of the federal government, because these public sector unions are the natural defense for the deep state. If you have bureaucrats who are opposing the people's elected president and his agenda, they're going to be bankrolled, they're going to be protected.
Let me stop you right there. What's the most obvious answer? What's the most obvious example of that everyone knows?
The American Federation for Government Employees.
Nobody knows who FG is outside of DC. No, the most obvious one of that is, think about it, parents everywhere in America bump up against them on the regular.
NEA, AFT?
That's correct.
Yeah.
NEA.
Well, all of these.
You think about how the National Education Association operates to your point, as a shield.
Oh yeah.
For their own administrators.
And they're part of the funding
larger
scheme too.
That's right.
For all of these woke
That's right.
activist groups.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No worries.
I just wanted everybody to have hey, this is an example in case you're wondering what we're talking about. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the main thing is to get public sector unions out of the federal government. This is something that even FDR didn't support. He said that it would be nefarious to have a system that pits so-called public servants against the people's representatives. And this is one of the weird ways where I say that FDR was right. I almost never say that. But on this issue, he was correct. We also need to have the REINS Act, which I think is fundamental to restraining the federal bureaucracy. And then we also have, I take a look at these groups like the CFPB, where the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, where they've been created almost to be insulated from Congress and the president.
Not almost.
Yeah.
Not almost.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Elizabeth Warren.
I was going to say America's favorite oil and gas lawyer, Senator Warren. That's what she was. For years, she made it easier to extract oil and gas out of the ground. Good for her. Good for her. Okay. What did you think about the president's order on grants yesterday? And for those who don't pay close attention every day, yesterday, President announced a temporary cessation of grants out of the federal government, which somebody came up with a number of $3 trillion, which I'm like, wow, that seems like a lot, man. Anyway, what do you think of that? I mean, it affects everybody.
I'm not certain it's that big, but it's definitely humongous. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really good, important step in the right direction. It's obviously temporary.
Well, is it really? Are you sure?
So, I mean, based on Congress approving funds, maybe it won't be temporary. We'll see. I think it's very important. From the issues on my book, I go in great detail on the organizations I call the immigration industrial complex,
Yeah.
where these NGOs that are receiving, in cases, billions of dollars from the federal government to move illegal aliens across the country, they're abetting the border crisis, and your tax dollars are paying for it. That needs to end yesterday. That needs to never start again. And many of these organizations that I talk about in my book, they need to not get any federal funding. Like conservative groups don't get federal funding for pursuing their agendas. Why should left-wing groups get federal funding?
Because they're better organized.
Well,
They're more pointedly
they
organized.
shouldn't.
Oh, should.
Why do
should.
they? Yeah,
Should.
maybe that's the answer.
I
Should is.
I try to avoid those kind of things. All right, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I'd like to be a best-selling author.
I hate to ask this question, but I'm going to. How old are you?
I am 35.
I was going to guess 32. I'm getting better at this. All right, what do you want to be when you grow up, other than a best-selling author, which is not really that you know.
Well, husband, father. Maybe when I really grow up, I want to be a grandfather. My kids are 2 and 5 right now, so
Oh, very nice.
they're
Nice.
that'll be a while for me, hopefully.
Yeah. Yes. What do you want to do? What do you want to do in town here? What is your big hope? You like this issue? You want to work on it forever? You want to come be a co-host of the podcast?
I do really like coming on podcasts and shows. I don't know. I like championing conservative issues. I like exposing the left. I want to write more. I love writing. I just have a writing itch.
Good.
So ever since I was, I think it was weird. In 5th grade, I did the AP American History test.
Yep.
And most of my classmates did not like sitting down and writing the essays in, what was it, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes? We had to research something and write an essay. And I loved the challenge of it. So like, that's one of the, I'm one of those weird people
it's idiot's work. Speaking as somebody who does a twice a week column, it's idiot's work. You just, hey, 600 words. How much opinion do you have? I have 600 words worth of opinion. But if you like it, you should do it, right? It's no more complicated than that.
I do like it. Yeah.
Are we headed towards? I think I know the answer to this question, but I'd like your thought on it. This grant stuff, the loans, the IRA and the IHA, temporary pauses, temporary cessations. Are we headed towards some kind of legal impoundment fight here? Like sooner rather than later?
That seems like.
How's that feel to it, doesn't it?
How quickly can Congress pass a reconciliation bill? That's the real question for that.
And fix this thing that way?
Yeah. I don't think it's.
That.
How long before a temporary pause becomes impoundment? I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that either, and I'm almost 100% confident that that's why they've been characterized as temporary, to prevent people from litigating on them. So the administration could just say, "We're temporary. They're temporary. They're temporary." I think it's going to save you for a while, but not indefinitely. I'm kind of looking forward to this impoundment fight. I have no sense of the history of it. Administration said yesterday when they announced it, said this has been impoundment's been, they didn't say impoundment, but, presidents rescinding or holding on to money has been 200 years until we got to the Impoundment Act of 74. The Impoundment Act was unconstitutional. I'm like, okay, that's where we're going. I'm looking forward to that.
It will be a good fight. I think it raises some really good separation of powers questions.
All right.
If I could shoot you a question, actually. I did a lot of work on...
Did you get this?
Did a lot of work on John Podesta in this book.
Did you?
And
my name came up multiple times.
I was wondering if you had any evidence. So, I found multiple meetings at the White House between Podesta and then all these people whose job essentially it is to move these green grants around. You have this organization called What Works Plus that just exists for that. And I was wondering, I couldn't find yet, and I'm sure the evidence is coming, but whether John Podesta took those grants that he had control of from the IRA, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, and gave them to any of his big donors from the Center for American Progress, any of his big cronies, that he's built up over the years. I assume he probably did, but I don't have concrete evidence.
You mean like his actual? Yeah, wow. I don't know. We'll start looking around for it because I would assume that was just laying around in open, right? I mean, he's 75 years old. I've known Podesta for a long time. He's careful. He's not going to do anything illegal, not openly, but I don't know. I have to look into that.
Yeah, that LNG pause. I recently realized his brother is representing European LNG companies. I was like, interesting. Interesting confluence of interest there.
Like I said, the Democrats are invariably better organized than we are around stuff like that. I mean,
That's why I wrote the book.
To our LNG to the LNG pause, to that, President said, "Hey, unpause it and start processing applications," and of course, DOE responded by saying, "Okay, and we're going to put 30 more days of comment onto the study." I'm like, dude, the study's illegitimate. Why are we giving it legitimacy? Democrats were just looking to go, we're throwing that study in the garbage and we're just proceeding along pace, right? This one great thing about this last week is there's been a lot of clarity. I'm looking forward to more of it. I mean, that's really what he's provided, clarity. All right, Tyler, best and finals, last thoughts before I let you go.
Well, I think one of the big things that we didn't quite touch on is that a lot of the groups in my book are now gearing up for lawfare against the new administration.
Sure.
So you have, and then there's two tracks. I think the Woketopus is very relevant, even though Trump is in office, because you have the growth of a deep state gearing up to oppose Trump. There's a recent poll that found 64% of Washington, D.C. based federal bureaucrats who voted for Kamala Harris in the last election said they would not follow a legal Trump order if they thought it was bad policy. That number really stood out to me. And the other thing is, you have the American Civil Liberties Union, some of these other organizations that are already filing lawsuits to stop the Trump agenda. So the Woketopus's influence in the administrative state is still a little bit there. Luckily, a lot of the tentacles have been chopped, but many of the tentacles are just pulling back, ready to keep exerting their influence in any way that they can.
Tyler, thanks again for coming in. Everybody should buy the book that you've written, which you're going to tell me the title of right now, because I've managed to gag on it twice.
Yeah, the Woketopus, the dark money cabal manipulating the federal government.
Seriously, we need to workshop that whole title. But I thank you for writing it. It's important, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. It's good stuff.
Well, thanks again for having me.
You betcha. That was me and Tyler talking to each other about a bunch of different things, but mostly about environmental stuff. And as you can tell, we liked everything about the book except its god-awful title. And I
maybe we need to get him on the team here. He sounds like
we should definitely have
him very nicely with the culture.
He'd be good if he said we should definitely have him sit in a couple of times, because he's kind of crazy and he's not afraid to speak right up and poke holes in people. And the book's pretty fun, right? It in addition to all the stuff we talked about, it also had did sideswipe our friends at Ford Motor Company. So right away, I'm in favor of it.
Chris Farley's cousin.
Yeah, man.
Nam Watch got a pretty good number of his folks through now. The big ones on the board still are
Kash
Patel, who's delayed for a week.
Yeah.
The Dems did a procedural deal, and for some reason the Republicans let him. What do they always think that?
There's a reason for that, right? It's because he failed to disclose on his financial disclosure form that he had gotten $800,000 in Truth Social stock, right? Like a month ago or something, right? He did not disclose that. That, to my mind, feels like a material omission. I could be wrong. And the other thing that's come up is whether he owns some stock in a Chinese company. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know it was all popping on Twitter yesterday. So I think the Republicans want to make sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Clean
on
that
this
up
one.
a little bit.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it, right? He at this point he can say, "Hey, man, simple mistake, right? I thought my accountant had done it. Let's amend it and keep moving."
All right, and we have RFK and Tulsi still. They made it through committee.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
They'll be fine now, right? We're going to see both of them.
Yeah, I think everybody's fine now. So they're.
Ross' vote was confirmed after a all-night session by the Democrats for the architect of the Project 2025 and the mastermind behind destroying the federal government.
Yeah, whatever. I didn't quite understand the purpose of that exercise. I really didn't.
Yeah, and Pam Bondi's in, and she's rolling through.
I've been surprised. I expected somebody else to stub their toe. It looks like the only person who could stub his toe at this point is Kash Patel.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
And now we're gonna move. We're gonna move on to
the unders and stuff like that.
I was gonna say we're gonna move on to the deputy secretaries next, and then the unders and the assistants. Some of those guys won't get through, but that's just the way the world is.
Yeah. While we were sleeping, did you know that we bombed the hell out of some ISIS sites?
Yes.
In Somalia?
Yes.
Which didn't get any coverage at all, really. But this from AP: U.S. military conducts airstrikes against Islamic State operatives in Somalia. The strikes by U.S. Africa Command were directed by Trump and coordinated with Somalia's government. Initial assessment by the Pentagon indicated that multiple operatives were killed. The Pentagon said it assessed that no civilians were harmed in the strikes.
I'm sorry, are we at war with somebody in Somalia?
Apparently these were ISIS. Let me read Mr. Trump's Truth Social.
Yeah, that'd be smart.
The strikes destroyed the caves they live in and killed many terrorists without in any way harming civilians. Our military has targeted this ISIS attack planner for years, but Biden and his cronies wouldn't act quickly enough to get the job done. I did. Trump said the message to ISIS and all others who would attack Americans is that we will find you and we will kill you, all caps.
Yeah. Did ISIS kill somebody I didn't know about?
Apparently Biden's been dragging his heels on these.
On what?
ISIS people, on these terrible people.
Are we at war with ISIS? Or, I'm sorry, did I miss a declaration of war somewhere? I mean, how long is this nonsense going to go on? I mean, I'm serious. I'm asking a serious question. How long is this going to go on? When are we going to know that we've defeated ISIS? When?
I don't know.
I mean, is this just, is this like, is it, because everybody just says, hey, this is completely normal. I'm like, this is not completely normal. This is a really, really bad thing. And I was stunned that like literally nobody in the press corps thought, hey, maybe we should ask a couple of questions about this at the presser. No, they're all busy. They're all busy chasing Elon Musk instead of like this thing. It's crazy.
Okay. Quick political.
Are we going to need?
update.
Are we going to need to kill a bunch of ISIS guys to pave over Gaza and put some hotels there?
The Riviera.
Just checking.
The Riviera.
This is why everybody thinks I'm chippy, because I'm the last guy in Washington not to either hate Trump or think he's a genius. I'm like the only guy in the middle.
All right, I got a quick little rundown in South Carolina. Are you ready for this?
Did we kill some ISIS guys in South Carolina?
No, we didn't. But guess who's thinking about running for governor?
Nancy Mace.
Mark Sanford.
What's the difference?
Mark Sanford says he may return for another campaign. Of course, we all remember that.
How'd the last one go?
Mark Sanford spent a few days in the Appalachian Trail.
No,
he said he was.
Yeah, he wasn't on the Appalachian Trail.
He had some fun with an Argentinian that got him in a little bit of trouble, and then he actually made a comeback.
How old is he?
I don't know.
This guy? He must be like 80 by now.
I don't know, but anyway, so Sanford's running. Others considering running are former Lieutenant Governor Pamela Yvette, Attorney General Alan Wilson, and U.S. Rep Nancy Mace. So
see, I knew Congresswoman Mace was going to run.
Yeah, well, she's considering her run. However,
the first woman out of the Citadel, she's going to run.
Yeah, and here's the one that I'm more interested in. However, Congressman Ralph Norman has confirmed that he's running to launch a challenge
to who? Against
Lindsey Graham.
Oh, that I missed.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. That's a super easy pick there.
Could this be the year?
Oh, let's hope so.
Could this be the year?
Ralph.
We will witness a sharp tack to the right by our good friend Senator Graham here pretty soon.
Yeah, that's
after he stops lavishing Zelensky with all of his
seriously
praise. So that could be a pretty formidable one this time. I've gotten my I shouldn't say that. I should say this. I got my hopes up in the past, only to be disappointed. So.
Ralph Norman is aces, though. He's a great guy.
Yeah,
he's a great guy. He'd be a good senator. He'd be a good senator. Be a fun senator.
I feel like we should start getting involved in primaries.
You mean like start running ourselves, or
no? Just starting to get involved in primaries. That's all. I'll leave it at that for now. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah, okay. So, I'm game. I'm game to get involved in that primary.
Maybe set up a super PAC.
Super PAC. Absolutely. We set up a super PAC. One of us becomes its director, spends all the money on the other guy. We split it.
Yeah, we'll set up a consulting business, a media buying business. Yeah. Just be like everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. What the heck? You want to grift? We'll grift.
All right. Anything else in politics that I might have missed before we get to energy?
I don't think so. I think.
I mean, I'm sure I missed a bunch.
Well, I mean, there's the budget nonsense, right? But that's going to settle itself in the next couple of days, I think. Not settle, but we'll at least have a trajectory on it.
Yeah, we can wait till next week for that.
We could probably wait till July. We won't miss anything.
Well, this from the Hill. We're going to move on to energy. Red states sue New York over law making fossil fuel companies pay for disasters. A group of Republican attorneys general is suing New York over their state law. 22 red states are suing over the Climate Superfund law, which could make companies pay $3 billion annually for the next 25 years. The suit argues that the law exceeds New York's constitutional authority, saying the founders recognize that certain categories of conduct are best regulated through nationwide rules. So, blue states suing red states.
Yeah. Yeah, did we talk about this last week where I pointed out that like 38 states are normal on this stuff and like 10 or 12 aren't? We may need to construct something like to really stick it to these guys because this is crazy to me. This completely subverts federalism. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the California, New York, Illinois to some extent.
There's 10 states. The guys east of the Hudson River, New York State, Illinois, California, Oregon, Washington. That's it. You know, I don't understand why the rest of us are letting them like dictate stuff like this.
Yeah, I don't know either, actually.
I mean, that is certainly not what we signed up for in the Constitution.
Georgia Power to keep coal, gas power plants running longer as demand climbs. This is from Power Mag. Southern Company subsidiary Georgia Power has proposed a pivot towards extending the life of several existing coal and natural gas-fired power plants into the late 2030s, well beyond previous retirement timelines, citing rising electricity demand, regulatory constraints, and grid reliability risks. The utilities 2025 IRP, that's an integrated resource plan, filed with the Georgia Public Service Commission, marks a strategic shift in the company's approach to managing its supply and demand profile. Good on our friends at Georgia Power.
Yeah, and the difference is, right, that stuff will get done because, you know, it's a simple transaction. You know, the state officials, right, the guys who run the Georgia PSC, they're going to assess it and say yeah or no, and then it'll get done. Unlike in the, quote, organized markets.
I was just going to say, it's another nod towards the, quote, old approach.
Well, I mean, you saw what the governor of Pennsylvania wants to do, right? Yeah. Same thing, except he wants to have it all be renewables. But, you know, if whatever you have doesn't work, people are going to try to find a way around it. The Georgia model works, at least for Georgians. You know, I'm not saying it doesn't present risks, but stuff gets built or stuff gets kept built, right? Whichever.
Yeah. They had, however, the article goes on to say since 2007, Georgia Power has retired 5,547 megawatts of capacity, including 4,787 megawatts of coal.
Yeah.
So,
But keep in mind, those are coal plants for the most part from the late 50s and the early 60s. Those things are 50 years old, 60 years old, right? They were coming on at the end of the useful life anyway.
Also government problem, not solution
Sure.
oriented. We can't modernize these coal plants.
That's right. There's some of that going on. Yeah. It's let's put it this way. Somebody, the guys at Duke, that energy center down at Duke, run by a former Carper staffer, right? They did a look at this about 5 years ago, and they concluded that the government stuff was about 50%, and the economic stuff and the age stuff was about 50%. They were essentially equal. But to your point, right? It's a finger on the scale. It's a thumb on the scale.
That's right. It's a whole of government approach to either making it harder to do these things or making it easier to do these things.
Well, also, and this is something that wind, solar, and battery guys are experiencing now for the first time. It's also just the plain old American introduction of uncertainty in the decision-making process. You sit there and go, I wonder what the government's going to do to me. And that's a decision point all by itself. It makes it exponentially more difficult to guess when you have just a hostile government.
Yeah, and quite frankly, if things go horribly wrong and or the electorate decides that they aren't really thrilled with this new golden age, we're going to get right back into the swing the other way. Right?
That's right.
And every administration has upped their game on the swing, right? President Trump set a new baseline for the swing, right? These past 18 days or whatever, with the Florida VOs and everything else.
Yeah,
so.
I'm looking forward to the next Democratic president, and we're going to have one eventually. I'm looking forward to what his or her roving grand jury is going to look like, right?
Yeah.
They're obviously not going to be trying to stop something. They're going to be trying to do something, but I do wonder what that's going to look like.
Yeah. We talked about Ford earlier. This is from a outfit called Sherwood News.
We actually made fun of Ford earlier, but go ahead.
Yeah, we did. Chris Farley's cousin's company.
That would be an awesome lead.
EV business lost the value of about 100,000 new F-150s last year. The Ford EV division lost $5.1 billion in 2024, more than double the previous year's loss. Despite selling 98,000 electric vehicles, the company plans to introduce lower cost and extended range EVs in 2 years, but faces challenges from Tesla and potential tariffs on imported components. While Ford's revenue reached a record high, the stock price fluctuated due to uncertainty and competition. The record profits combined with massive losses in EVs equals what? Do the math.
Well, which math do you want me to do?
Let's start with the one about how they're subsidizing their losses with the cars that people want to buy, which makes it way more expensive for us to buy the cars we want to buy.
Yeah, at 98,000.
That's one math equation.
Well, I'll do that for you right now. The 98,000 units sold, right, and a $5.1 billion loss, that basically you're losing about $51,000 on every EV that they sold. So that's a straight subsidy right there, right? You're basically putting $51,000 into the red every time you sell one of these things, and somebody's got to make that up somewhere, right? It doesn't magically appear, right? So it seems like an unsustainable business model. I mean, I'm just a lobbyist, so I really wouldn't know. But but if I was losing $50,000 on every customer, I'd be out of business here pretty shortly.
I still don't understand why the shareholders have not booted Chris Farley's cousin yet.
I'm coming.
Or Mary Barra for that matter. These people are destroying these companies.
I get the feeling that they think there's going to be a moment of reckoning, or maybe they've shorted the company or something, right? Because I'm with you. At some point you're like, guys, whatever you.
I mean, I'd be out on my ass. My board would fire me in a heartbeat if I lost $51,000
per unit, right?
Per unit.
Just like, I mean, it's
If I paid you like $51,000 a month, that would be the end of my career.
It's just crazy, right? You're like, why hasn't this stopped? And the answer is, somebody must be making money off it.
Yeah, well, they made record profits off of our backs.
Well,
So-
I mean, that's the thing.
The
about
worst
it.
part is we get it 3 and 4 ways, right? We get it from the subsidies that we're paying to Washington, from the taxes that we send them. We're getting these hidden subsidies in the cars we actually want to buy, right? We're getting it in the form of basically handing over tax credits to companies and really rich people. And then I didn't put it in the show notes, but you had sent over something from your friends at, was it Haas again, about the corn versus corn versus
corn versus wind power generated electricity. It was fascinating stuff.
So I didn't bring it up, but I'll put in the show notes if you want to chime in on it.
Well, I mean, they just broke it down, and the bottom line of all of it is that corn, actually ethanol derived from corn, is more efficient running vehicles than wind, and the only way the wind and the solar stuff is competitive is because of the tax subsidy, and that counts in all subsidies, right? Ethanol and everything.
Yeah, which is why ACP is blitzing the Hill right now.
Well,
saw that, right?
Yeah, it struck me. Here's the interesting thing, right? The liquid fuels guys should all be on the same side, but the corn growers are so locked into being corn growers, they don't understand that at some point the environmentalists are coming for their liquid fuel as well. And these guys at Haas who do just this spectacular work, they basically just circled. Like, hey, yeah, they are going to. Don't
listen to those right-wing crazy think tanks like the Institute for Energy Research.
These guys actually are coming
I'm at
after
Berkeley,
you,
and I'm laying out the whole game for you, right?
That's why I sent it over to you, because I was just like, this guy apparently didn't get the memo. You're not supposed to say this stuff out loud, and here we are. I love those guys.
Guess who wants to be Trump's climate guy?
John Curtis.
E&E, our friend Kelsey, did a profile on John Curtis, the new Utah senator who made his name in the House by pushing conservatives to acknowledge climate change. He has a new target. That's President Donald Trump. In fact, the soft-spoken 64-year-old, she should have added the soft-spoken 64-year-old Democrat mayor from Provo, was optimistic he might be able to get through to the man who just 4 months ago suggested climate change simply meant that the sea level might rise 1/8 of an inch in 400 years, and so you'd have more seafront property.
That's a conversation I go a long way to see.
I would.
That's a conversation I'd really want to be in the room for.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I miss Mitt Romney already.
I don't miss Mitt Romney. I'm assuming that.
Why does Utah do this to us?
Because they're
great guy, Mike Lee, and like they got to counterbalance their wisdom with.
Wisconsin always sends us a very liberal Democrat and usually a very conservative Republican as their Senate seatmates, right? Obviously, Utah's getting in the same habit. They're sending us like really great guys and then somewhat sketchy guys in the middle.
Tennessee used to be like that, but Blackburn fixed that. So maybe it'll come around.
Some of that. There's no way the Senator Curtis is coming around. He is what he is.
No, not him. I'm saying the next one.
He is what he is, and I don't worry about him during the Trump administration.
He's cozied up to Lisa and Senator Murkowski and Senator Collins already. He's all like, "Ooh, girls, let's go hang."
We're gonna all be well. This is what has become a fairly monthly reminder. Senator Murkowski is an independent, not a Republican. Just wanted to point that out. She caucuses with the Republicans, but she ran and won as an independent. And, Senator Curtis sort of fits in with that, right? He was theoretically the independent mayor of Provo, right? Because I was reminded they have a nonpartisan election.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
but he was, in fact, the Democratic County Chairman of Utah County.
Democratic Party.
Yeah. So it I don't understand what the hell goes on in Utah. Let's get Simmons on the show so he can explain it to us.
Okay, I got a tweet of the week and a close. So, any best and finals from you, my congenial co-host?
I just want to apologize if I've been chippy or less than perfectly wonderful and happy for the entirety of this program.
All right, that's fair enough. Well, the tweet of the week is from none other than President Donald J. Trump. Quote, I will be signing an executive order next week ending the ridiculous Biden push for paper straws, which don't work. Back to plastic. An exclamation point. It is glorious.
It's like the cold country.
80-20 is an 80-20. Another one. Who in the world likes a paper straw?
It's like the
Don't drink out of cardboard.
It's like the whole country's being run like a city council precinct in New York City.
Great. I love it.
It's crazy.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So I got to set up this close.
Yeah.
Have you heard the criticisms of some of the younger data bros that Elon Musk has hired at Doge?
You mean that they're children, or that or they don't know anything, or?
One reporter discovered one of the data bros had some pretty racy tweets back in the day. So here it is.
So this is a 19-year-old high school graduate who has used the unfortunate nickname Big Balls online. So that would be one way that we could refer to him. He is now working at Musk's behest inside Doge. And we looked into his background. And so we found, several notable things, Aaron, one of which is that this individual has founded multiple companies, including one with another unfortunate name, Tesla.Sexy LLC, which he established in 2021. He would have been around 16 years old. Now, this LLC controls dozens of web domains.
So, Kara, you hear this, and you have known Elon Musk for years. So now you look at these young men who are now in data and in the private information about maybe hundreds of millions of American citizens as young as 19, the big balls here.
I've got big balls. I've got big balls. They're such big balls. And they're
all right, well, that is a wrap, a big wrap for the 216th episode of the Unregulated podcast and episode 3 of the Golden Age of America.
The golden age of something.
Big Balls is running big data.
This country is doomed. Namaste.